Hi, my name is Tanya San Nicolas Roca. I'm an assistant professor in the School of Information at San Jose State University. Today I'm going to talk to you about cybersecurity and cloud computing. The CIA Triad is the heart of cybersecurity. The CIA Triad is made up of three components. They are confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Confidentiality is essentially preserving authorized restrictions on information access and disclosure, including means for protecting personal privacy and proprietary information. A loss of confidentiality is the unauthorized disclosure of information. Confidentiality affects individuals, organizations, as well as national security. Individuals want to maintain confidentiality of their personally identifiable information, also known as PII, health data, financial data, education data, etc. Organizations want to maintain confidentiality of customer data, health information data, intellectual property, employee PII, as well as communication, amongst other things. National security wants to maintain confidentiality with regards to military plans, intelligence data, weapons data, foreign relations data, as well as other things. Integrity is guarding against improper information, modification, or destruction, and includes ensuring information non-repudiation and authenticity. A loss of integrity is the unauthorized modification or destruction of information. So again, individuals, organizations, and national security want to maintain integrity of the data that they collect, store, and use on a daily basis or process. So with individuals, again, it's personally identifiable information, health, financial, as well as education data. For organizations, customer information, intellectual propriety, or intellectual property, employee PII, communication, such as email. Again, national security with military plans, communication, intelligence data, weapons data, as well as foreign relations data. Availability is essentially ensuring timely and reliable access to and use of information. So a loss of availability is the disruption of access to or use of information or an information system. Information, or the availability of information and information resources, should be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, provided that that is the IT security policy that's employed within the organization. Some organizations only allow for data or information and information resources to be available up through a certain time of the day or so many days a week. So again, that availability is really all dependent upon the organization's IS security policy. What is it that we want to be available to us? For individuals, organizations, national security, it's going to be different things. For individuals, their individual data, bank account information, email, availability of utilities such as water, electricity, and gas. Organizations, access to or availability of data, servers, critical infrastructure, as well as utilities. National security, data, servers, critical infrastructure, communication, as well as utilities. So what is cloud computing, and how does the CIA affect cloud computing? A large collection, well, cloud computing, first and foremost, is a large collection of networked resources used to provide storage and access to computer resources and services. So the cloud is simply a metaphor for the internet. Okay, again, the cloud is simply a metaphor for the internet. There are different types of models of the cloud. They are private, public, and hybrid. A private cloud is a cloud within an organization. Generally speaking, they are reserved for larger organizations that have their own IT staff as well as their own data centers. So these are, for an organization to have their own data center, in many cases they're very large organizations. So Facebook, Google, IBM, to name just a few. The public cloud is available to the general public. And again, it's available over the internet, okay, because it's public. So private is within, is within an organization. So it's part of that corporate infrastructure. Whereas the public cloud, again, is available to the public, but over the internet, okay. The great thing about the public cloud is it does provide some support for small businesses and can give them access to enterprise-level applications that would only generally be available to large organizations. The hybrid cloud is a combination of both private and public clouds. So this particular type of cloud addresses configuration management, change control, security, and some budgeting. Then there are services. There are three types of services that cloud computing will offer: software as a service, platform as a service, as well as infrastructure as a service. Software as a service is used for, generally speaking, office productivity, such as email, work processing, file sharing, collaboration. Platform as a service provides support or is used to develop and run a website, to provide or to run a website in the cloud or to build applications. Then infrastructure as a service, it functions like storage and computing. Okay, so it will be used to store items such as intellectual property, of documents, drawings, applications, things like that. Here are examples of different companies that provide cloud services. And some of these you may be familiar with, maybe Box, Dropbox. Some of those two you may be familiar with. Those offer infrastructure as a service. You may be familiar with Oracle as a platform as a service, amongst others, of course. And then there's also software as a service. So Qualys could be one. Other CRM or customer relationship management applications. So you see that there are a number of cloud companies out there and available to provide services. So what are some of the benefits of cloud computing? Lower total cost of ownership. That is of hardware and software. So really, there are no maintenance costs. There are no IT maintenance costs. In terms of upgrades are provided by the cloud provider. So total cost of ownership to the organization or the buyer of these cloud services is somewhat minimal. Faster application delivery is another benefit. So the providing applications or getting that application out a lot sooner, so faster to market, is a benefit to many organizations. Collaboration and computing is another benefit, offering the ability to collaborate amongst the mobile workforce. It's always available. Productivity can be done, or productivity is anywhere. Increased availability. So the availability of these resources, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Cloud computing can be very flexible. So the ability for the cloud, if you will, to scale to meet the needs of the organization. To use a smaller IT staff or to employ a smaller IT staff also helps with total cost of ownership. And business continuity. If your data is stored, if data as well as applications are available in the cloud, if they're stored in off-site servers, multiple servers in different parts of the country, the availability of these resources so that your organization continue to do business after a disaster is important and can happen. So business continuity is a benefit with the use of cloud computing. With the benefits also come some concerns. So there are a number of security concerns of cloud computing. A data breach. Data breaches, you've heard about many data breaches from Target, Home Depot, amongst a number of organizations that have suffered a data breach. Adobe is another one. With Adobe had a breach, and this would be cloud computing specific breach. 38 million accounts were compromised. Data loss, so to lose that data is a concern of cloud computing. System outage. There were a number of cloud computing system outages. Microsoft Windows Azure suffered an outage for 12 hours. Amazon went offline for an hour, costing them $5 million in lost revenue. Virgin Blue Airlines also suffered an outage for approximately 21 hours, affecting 50,000 customers. Ownership is another concern. Who owns the intellectual property, the creative works, or the data that is stored on the cloud? For many, that becomes an issue. It is a problem to define who owns that information once it's stored on third-party servers. Cloud abuse. To use the cloud to do a number of malicious things, such as to launch a distributed denial of service attack, or to use the computational ability of the cloud to break an encryption key. Lack of due diligence. So lack of due diligence on the side of the provider, but also the customer, to ensure that the provider is doing due diligence to safeguard, to protect and to safeguard data that is protected by laws and regulations. So if you're an organization or work for an organization that stores health information, financial information, educational information, there are a number of laws that serve to protect this type of information amongst other types of information, including personally identifiable information. But FERPA, HIPAA, GLBA, there are a number of laws and regulations that serve to protect information that has been safeguarded in an organization's hands. Under these laws, the organization is required to safeguard them and can be held accountable. Using services from a cloud provider leaves this responsibility in the hands of the provider, but it doesn't mean that they will be held accountable if their systems are compromised. So a lack of due diligence leads to many concerns surrounding cloud computing. Loss of control and flexibility over data and processing is a huge concern. So the control over that data, the lack of interoperability as well. So if you're using multiple providers, will there be an issue with interoperability? If data is stored in one location, would it be interoperable, or will systems be interoperable so that data could be used by an organization? Safety of cloud servers. Servers are an attractive target for attackers. There's a significant amount of data stored on the cloud. With that said, they are a target. There's a lot more data that can be extracted, a lot more access to highly sensitive information, and so therefore they are attractive. Systems crash. If the servers are to crash, the availability of the information and the information resources suffer. Okay. Other things, insecure interface and application, programming interfaces, so APIs, so insecure interfaces and APIs. There can be problems with these particular interfaces or APIs in the sense that as they're being developed, there may be a number of security vulnerabilities in the development of those particular types of programs, which could lead to a number of concerns. Malicious insiders, so people who work for cloud providers. They could be current or former employees, a contractor, or a business partner. Insiders may have malicious intent. They may have access to information stored on servers. With that access comes many vulnerabilities to different types of threats. Okay, so malicious insiders would be a security concern. Software failure. Software failure is also a security concern. Knight Capital underwent software failure. It cost the firm over $440 million in 45 minutes. Software failure is a huge concern. If the software does not function properly and access to information is not available or it's incorrect or there's a problem with the integrity of the software, it could lead to a significant loss to an organization that depends on the use of that software. And like I said, in the case of Knight Capital, they lost $440 million in 45 minutes. Authentication is also a problem. It's important that employees who have access to cloud services or to data that's stored on the cloud, it's important for them to protect their credentials. At the same time, if an organization employs many cloud providers, employees must have or may be required to have multiple different types of passwords. Having to have multiple passwords could lead to improper handling of passwords and even the creation of those passwords. So employees could potentially write passwords down, or they may develop very weak passwords. Connectivity and mobility may also be an issue. So the lack of ability or availability of resources while an employee is more mobile could pose a problem. In addition, with the use of mobile devices, data may not be submitted or transmitted, or stored securely on mobile devices that have been downloaded from the cloud or accessed and processed and downloaded from the cloud. Another problem would be lack of privacy. So data exposure. How could your personally identifiable information, how could the data that you've entrusted within an organization, how is that made secure? What would happen if that data is exposed? So a lack of privacy could be an issue. It could be something as simple as your web searching history. So maybe the last 24 hours, maybe the last 7 days of information about the information that you've accessed online. What would that, if somebody was to gain access to that information, so 7 days of your searching history, what would that tell somebody about you? It may say that you're a very active employee. It may say that you're a very determined student. It could say a number of different things. It may also say things that you don't want people to know. So therefore, your privacy may be compromised. Resource allocation. With cloud computing, cloud computing requires that internet access. You must have access to the internet in order to access data, process data, and to download data from the cloud. That requires the bandwidth. In many cases, the bandwidth may not be large enough to support what you are needing to have processed. And so those bandwidth limitations could also be a security concern. As a matter of fact, bandwidth limitations has seemed to be a very large or significant problem for many organizations, with processing, with a significant amount of processing that takes place from very basic systems, including traffic lights, where sensors are used. If something was to change within the system that controls traffic lights, and a significant amount of data is being processed, there's a good chance that the bandwidth limitations will not be enough to accommodate the needs required to control those traffic lights. And again, that's just an example. I mentioned a number of cloud-based failures, so Virgin, Blue Airlines, Adobe, Knight Capital, etc. Please feel free to read some information about these cloud-based failures, and I've provided you with the name of the organization as well as the URL to access that information. Fog computing is a relatively new concept that was created by Cisco. I'm sorry, I was trying to think of the person who created it, and her name is Ginny, and I cannot remember her last name, I'm sorry, but she does work for Cisco. So fog computing helps to resolve or mitigate the issues with bandwidth limitations that we see in traditional cloud computing. So what is fog computing? Fog computing allows data processing and applications to concentrate in smart devices at the network edge. So therefore, computing is happening around you and close to the ground as opposed to being in the cloud. Okay? So it's not happening in the cloud. There's plenty of processing. There's data, there's processing applications that are there more localized and not in the cloud. So services are hosted at the network edge. What are some of the benefits of this? It reduces service latency. Okay, so with latency, how long does it take for that process, if you're requesting something from the cloud, how long does it take to process? If we require applications in real time or in a predictable time frame, then fog computing is extremely important. Okay? So fog computing reduces service latency. It improves that quality of service because we are able to get the data that we need to do our job more efficiently and more effectively. So again, fog computing supports emerging Internet of Everything applications that demand real-time and predictable latency. But I must say, with fog computing, it is an extension of the cloud. So while a lot of processing, even though data and processing and applications are there and they're concentrated at the network edge, it doesn't mean that organizations are no longer using cloud computing. So things that are required, the data, the processing, the applications that are needed more locally will be, excuse me, will be there at the network edge. But other things, other applications, other types of data could be stored in the cloud for organizational employees to use. So are there any laws and regulations that serve or that surround cloud computing? The answer to that is no, not really. However, organizations are responsible to ensure that the data they have been entrusted with is secure. And I mentioned that earlier. Since organizations are responsible to ensure the data they have been entrusted with is secure, it's important that organizations must impose all legal or regulatory requirements that apply to their organization onto the cloud service provider. It is important for the organization to do that. It is important for them to do due diligence by researching and imposing, or therefore requiring, that the cloud service provider use security policies and maintain and enforce those policies so that data that is highly sensitive is safeguarded. You can read more information about this at the Cloud Industry Forum, Cloud Standards Wiki. The Cloud Security Alliance is another one. There are plenty of videos out there about cloud computing. So what is cloud computing, regulating cloud computing, investing in cloud computing. There's a video on Google's data center, which talks about cloud computing, Facebook's data center about cloud computing, from cloud to fog computing, and the Internet of Things. And I want to tell you, thank you so much for listening to this presentation. And please let me know if you have any questions. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.